Good evening, everybody out there in BGC Book Club world. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. We are about to have a very special conversation with a young lady that actually celebrated her. I don't know if she knows this, but a few months ago during Black Children's Book Week, I actually celebrated her. So it's really an honor to be able to talk to her for this conversation. So please go ahead and share, bring your young people into the room because this is a conversation that they are going to want to be a part of. So I'm your girl, Marcy Thomas, founder of Brown Girl Collective and the BGC Book Club, coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, with some heat tonight. So just so that you know, this is a first for Brown Girl Collective. We have not done a children's book before, and this is also going to be our youngest guest. So you are witnessing history in real time on this particular show at this particular time. So without any further delay, I want to go ahead and announce who we have with us for this particular evening. We have Zaila Avant-garde, who is a New York Times bestselling author and was named Sports Kid of the Year 2021 by Sports Illustrated Kids. Hailing from New Orleans, Louisiana, at the age of 14, she won the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee, making her the first African American to win in almost 100 years of the competition. Her spelling triumph is just one of the things that she does oh so well. She has a very impressive resume. In addition to her books, she also holds 2 Guinness World Records for her basketball prowess. But even that's not all that this wonderful young lady does. So without any further delay, I want to welcome Zaila so we can talk about Weird and Wonderful You, her brand new book. All right, so come on in the room, Zaila. It's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, it's indeed an honor. But like I said, I don't know if you knew that we celebrated you earlier
I
this year.
did.
Sure did, kind of taking a little bit from your book, Words of Wonder from Z to A. I did an A to Z celebration of Black women and girls in that write children's books. So you are Z because there's no other. There's no other. So welcome. So first of all, congratulations to you. You are, this is your 5th book, which is pretty impressive for a young lady such as yourself. So how does it feel to have this particular book out in the world, Weird and Wonderful You?
It feels really amazing to have this specific book out in the world because, like all of my books are programmed towards a younger audience. Though adults can feel free to read these books too. But I'm really proud of this book coming out because and as the title suggests, kind of celebrates the weird kids out in the world, like perhaps me when I was a little kid and me now. So I'm particularly proud of this one.
Yes. And in looking at the pictures, I tabbed some of them because I'm like, yeah, that's you. That's you with the basketball.
Yeah, that is me.
We definitely have you, you represented in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. For me as, I'm good and grown, I could be your grandma, put it that way. But in reading the book, I felt inspired because, it's really causes people of any age, as you said, to think about how they show up in the world
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling like I have to be like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
Yes. So for you, of course, as you said, sometimes people may have thought of you as being weird because of all of the different things that you do. So I think it's powerful to put this message out in the world.
Yes, definitely. When I was a young child, especially because back when I was playing basketball, especially when I was a young girl, I would go to play like pickup basketball with boys, and I would be doing stuff like that. But I would also have my interest in reading books like textbooks about anthropology and stuff like that. So I never exactly fit in perfectly in any one puzzle of society anywhere. So, and I definitely was, confronted on that a few times. And not in any particularly harsh ways, but people definitely noticed that I kind of was, weird, So this is definitely a message that I'm really happy to be able to get out now as an author.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I mean, weird could just be the way you decide to wear your hair, or it could be the things that you're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
or the clothes that you wear, or
Mm-hmm.
the books that you read. If everybody's reading one thing and you're talking about anthropology as a little person, I'm like, oh, I can definitely imagine people like, what is going on with that? So,
Mm-hmm.
but in the book, we have these beautiful illustrations, of course, many of which are represent you, but then they're your words,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also inspiration that comes from others. So, what was it that made you decide to not just have your words, but also bring in inspiration from other people as well?
Yes, so having quotes from other people as well. So this is something I also did in one of my previous books, Words of Wonder from Z to A. And kind of my reason, like my personal reason that I really love, I put quotes in my books is, for example, when I am reading a book, I just love to see like a good quote. Like I love to like see like an affirmation of something that I'm reading in the book. And also, I hope that these specific quotes will like introduce my young readers to like new visionaries and people that they may or may not have heard of. Like, for example, my favorite quote in this book is from Dr. Mae Jemison, who was one of my heroes growing up. And like, my hope is that someone might be reading this book and will see this quote and be like, who's Mae Jemison, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then they will go and they'll ask their parents, or they'll go and look it up, and then they'll learn about this new person that they can have to sort of look up to, and words that they can cherish from a new person. So that's kind of my personal motivation with like quotes and such.
Right. Yes, and they're good. Like Mae Jemison, who's a person who's had, some firsts in her life. And we're going to talk about you and your first here in a few minutes. But we hit Maya Angelou, Beyonce, Janelle Monáe, Alice Walker, and there are others. I'm just kind of pointing out, the Black women, since we kind of feature Black women books
Mm-hmm.
and Black women's voices in this space. But I do think that that's good and powerful that you even know of all of these people, and
Mm-hmm.
that enough to want to include them in a book for a younger generation. And here's my friend I was telling you about. I'm going to share, put this on the screen. I already talked about you, Rosie Lee. This is
Hi,
one of you.
Rosie.
I'm very inspired by you and your gifts. It's cool to not fit in. Absolutely. From a fellow West Bank of New Orleans native. Yes, that's my buddy there. Yes. And I mean, I don't know, especially for young people to think about embracing their weirdness, because it's actually weird, wild, and wonderful. You talk about in the book. It's something because it's so easy for young people, really even older people, to be honest with you, in many cases, to want to follow the trends or want to be like everybody else, and to know that it is okay and that your weirdness is wonderful because you are you.
Right. Yes, definitely. Like I feel like sometimes we might see a trend, right? And I love a good trend, right? But sometimes you might see a trend that you don't necessarily resonate with. Like I as a child, there were a lot of trends and things that like my fellow peers were doing that I just didn't resonate with. But at the same time, sometimes you could still like feel a certain pressure to sort of assimilate with that trend, even if that doesn't feel like something that's exactly you. And one of the aims of my book is to try to like show young children that like you don't necessarily have to follow this trend if it doesn't resonate with you personally. And so that's one of the messages really important to me.
Yes, you don't have to be like everybody else. Now, when you say children, what age range? Well, we already kind of said anybody can read it, but
Mm-hmm.
what age range are you really targeting in the book?
I would say the age range is pretty varied, but I think if you wanted to put specific numbers on it, you would say like maybe like 5 or 6 to 8. But
Mm,
then again, I've personally known of kids who are more like 11, 12 and such who are reading this book. So that's something else I love about this book is that it can sort of apply. It can be read to a 3-year-old by a parent, or
mm,
it can be read by a 13-year-old. Like there's kind of that variation in this book.
mm-hmm. So, what was it about you that made you embrace your inner weirdo? As we
I think personally, it was just I was very lucky to have very supportive surroundings. Like for me, growing up, my parents were very like supportive of any pretty much reasonable whim that my mind kind of went to. Like if they could have fit an airplane into their home, and I said I wanted to fly an airplane, they would have made it happen somehow. Like I
Wow.
grew up with very supportive parents, and I think that's kind of like the big thing that helped me sort of come into my own and embrace my own peculiarities, however you pronounce that word. And so I think that's what I would really say thanks to my parents for sort of supporting me and like kind of allowing me to grow out and figure out what directions I want to go in.
That is so important though, because I think a lot of times as children that there are a lot of things that might, it's shiny and it catches our eye, or we see
Mhm.
someone doing something and we want to do it. And sometimes those things can be squashed. I mean, like, you don't want to do, or maybe you tried something and you did quit it. So the next time it's like, oh, well, we're not going to let you do because you quit the
Yeah.
last time. I
Yeah.
love that you're saying that your parents, knew that you were this adventurous person that wanted to learn different things and try different things and embrace new ideas, and that they really supported you in that. So that's
Mm,
a blessing.
yes, for sure.
hmm We do have a question from Donna. Is weird your own unique characteristics, such as clothes and interests?
I would say, for one, yes, weird can be your own unique characteristics such as clothes and interests. That's a big thing, but weird can sometimes be viewed as many different things. But specifically, I think a lot of times when people are targeted for being weird, like for example, me, it was exactly my clothes and my interests. So, yes, definitely what people view as weird, it can, like, for example, when I was a kid, I was a young girl and I wore a lot of like baggy basketball shorts because I was playing basketball and things like that. And people would like sometimes in a knowing that I wasn't a boy would for example call me a boy and like say, oh, you're not very ladylike, oh you're this, oh you're that, and the word weird again would come up from my peers and stuff. So for me personally, like being weird was attached a lot to my clothes and my interests.
Yes, it definitely can be. Yes, and embracing that, because as I said, I'm older, much older than you. And one of the things that I have embraced that might be weird to some is that, hey, I like color. I like big, you see the big jewelry. I'm wearing the sun today because you're bringing sunshine into the space.
Yes.
But, just things like that. And somebody else might think, well, that's weird. Why is she wearing a big sun? Or whatever the case may be. So, now, Donna has another question, and it's a good question. It's like, is that really your last name? Because
Yes,
it means
yes,
creates and promotes innovative ideas.
yes. My last name is in fact Avant-garde. It is not a stage name. A lot of people think it's a stage name. It's not. My last name truly is Avant-garde. Um, so yes, that really is my last name. It's very
I
cool, isn't it?
It is. I love that. So it means you kind of have to step into that.
Yes, exactly. As a funny side fact, my first name Zaila means the mighty one, which would have really fit really well with most people, but of course I have to come out with sort of a Minnie Mouse voice, so it kind of does go a little bit against the grain, but it's okay. My personality is mighty.
Yes, it definitely is. Your personality, your mind, everything about you is that, just that. So that's great. So, but yes, I wanted it too, but Donna asked. So yeah. So of course, we're talking about the book, but I really want to talk some about you, because you've had a lot of great things going on, and even more to come as you're getting ready to go to college here real soon. But we're gonna say that for last. But
Hmm.
so for those of us out here in the broader world, we were introduced to you initially when you won the spelling bee back in 2021 as the first African American to do that in over 100 years. So, I guess my first question is, what was it that led you to love words to the extent that you wanted to even prepare or think about engaging in a spelling bee?
Yes, so from the time, as I sort of referenced a little bit earlier in this conversation, from the time I was really young, I was really into books, right? I loved, like, my parents tell me that I was like trying to read books and looking at them before I even knew how to read, right? I had read over 1,000 books by the time I was 13 years old. I was really into reading, and as a side effect of that, I was also really into words. Like, I would sometimes spend hours, like, just looking in like the dictionary. Like, I had the Merriam-Webster dictionary app on my iPad, and I would just sit there going in down rabbit holes, just looking at one word, and then you have like the blue link that connects to another word, and then I would just go down those rabbit holes. So I was always really into spelling words. So spelling kind of came as like a natural progression, sort of like a way that I could really harness my love of words and turn it into something that, became what it became. My love of words and I already had a lot of knowledge of words going into my spelling career, and I definitely think that kind of gave me a step up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, because it's something I was almost scared to talk to you. Like, I don't know if I have enough words. But but it is something as a person who loves to read, because I know my mother was an educator. She taught elementary age, and for her whole entire career.
Mhm.
And I am an avid reader, right? So sometimes, because she was teaching little kids, she was focused on the younger children. And I know, because I read a lot, sometimes I'll say something, she's like, what is that? Not because she doesn't know, because she's not intelligent, obviously not that, but just the expansion of words.
Mhm.
So how many words was it that you had to know to really even participate in the spelling bee?
Well, I can't give an exact number on how many words exactly that you need to know to participate in the spelling bee, but at the height of my time when I was spelling, doing about 13,000 words a day, I would say that I knew about 98 to 99% of the entire dictionary, and I
Wow.
won. So I would say that's a good benchmark, I guess, for participating in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Yeah,
98 to 99% of the dictionary.
yeah.
Wow. How much retention do you have for that, though?
How I have a surprising amount. I'm not going to remember every single really distinct geographical term that means a mountain range in Uzbekistan, but for like, more closer to like related to like average life for studying, like for example, my knowledge and retention of not only these words but also their meanings, and really importantly, Greek and Latin roots, which were a big part of what I was learning while I was studying for the spelling bee, has really served me well. Like, when, like for example, now I'm pursuing a career in biomedical research, and like I can see the names of like leukocytes or something like that, and I immediately know, oh, those are white cells, white blood cells,
Mm.
just because I know leuko means white in Greek and site means cell. So in that way, I'm very much having like real world applications and retention uh, in my spelling career.
Cool. Because as Donna's kind of asking a question, do you use those words in everyday conversation?
Well, yes. When I was a kid, as a side thing, something else that had me viewed sort of as weird was that I would use, words. Like for example, I would use words like more like, everyday words like anthropomorphic and stuff like that. And I would use them in everyday conversation, which makes more sense now, but made a little less sense when I was 5. So I have
Right.
really interesting like moments where I would say like, "Oh yeah, that's an anthropomorphic bunny," when referencing Bugs Bunny, and I was talking to like a fellow 7-year-old, and they would kind of just look at me with their mouths open.
Say what?
So I think my favorite kind of not regular word to use in conversation is Mephistophelian.
Mm.
It always gives like a nice little pause in conversations, which I love.
Mm.
So yeah.
So what does that mean? Because I'm clueless.
Yeah, so Mephistophelian pretty much means like devilish, like sort of working, and like, because it Mephistopheles, which is the word it comes from, like it's like Greek or something for like the devil or something like that, I believe.
Mm. All right. So, hey, The children are teaching us. The young people are teaching us. That's why I really wanted to have you here, because I knew you were going to teach us some things, right? As well as just hearing about your story. So I do know that you were homeschooled, right?
Yes, I was homeschooled my entire life except my junior year of high school.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So I guess first question, then we'll piggyback on that one. First question, do you think that being homeschooled really helped you in terms of like having the extra time to study and like really, engage in not just, the study for the spelling bee, but also some of the other things you've been doing that we'll talk about here in a few moments?
Yes, the big thing with homeschooling that it gave me was like it edited out a lot of time that is spent not in school but like preparing and going to school, right? So for example, I can roll out of my bed at 9:30 and just immediately start doing whatever work I have that day. I don't
Mhm.
have to get up at the ungodly hour of 5:45 a.m., which is
Right.
something I've done before. And
Hmm.
had to, get dressed. Now you get a shower, get dressed. Transportation there. Then you gotta get back, and those like it might seem like, oh, that's just like 2-3 hours, but that
Right.
can really pile up, and like over the course of like a school career. So having that time sort of edited out definitely helped me and gave me like time to also pursue my other interests such as juggling.
Yes, we want to talk about that juggling and all that, because you're good at juggling a lot of things.
Yeah.
I love that. So, but you did mention, just to say, to finish out the schooling thing, that you spent your junior year. You actually
Yes.
went to the school. So, what was that like for you after spending so much time being homeschooled?
Oh, it was really lovely. It kind of gave me a different perspective into the education system. I had been homeschooled my entire life, so going to like the public schools, like I went to Jackson Reed High School in Washington D.C., and I had a really lovely time there. I met some really nice, good friends and stuff, and kind of just it was a really lovely experience.
All right, well, that's good, because people oftentimes wonder about that when you're
Yeah.
making the transition, when you've kind of been, insular, and now you're out in the world, and what does that look like, trying to, make friends and things like that. So I'm glad that you had a great experience. But you mentioned your juggling.
Mm-hmm.
So, what came first, the juggling or the basketball?
Yes. So when I was I started playing basketball. I played from the ages of 5 to 17. So when I started when I was 5 years old, at first, I was just a little, pretty much toddler, dribbling one basketball and struggling. And my dad had the lovely idea, I bet if she could dribble 2 or 3 basketballs, she would be better at dribbling one basketball. And
Mm.
so that was kind of like the beginning. I still have like childhood memories of like being 6 years old and like dribbling, like just patting like 3 basketballs as I walked around a track that was like by my house. And that was sort of like the sparking point for like my interest, because I was like, I could do more with this, I could add a couple basketballs to this, this could be fun. And so basketball came first, and then from there the hobby sort of juggling kind of evolved from basketball.
Hmm. Wow. So juggling, how many balls can you juggle in the air, so to speak? Or do you do more than balls?
Yeah, so I mostly focus on basketballs. I juggle basketballs, off of the floor, and technically, I believe it's called bounce juggling. The most amount of basketballs that I have ever dribbled is 8 basketballs. So that's kind of like the highest amount of basketballs that I can dribble.
Oh, wow. That's something. And the world records that you have,
Mm-hmm.
tell us a
Yes,
little bit about those.
yes. So I have 2 Guinness World Records. I have the Guinness World Record for most bounce juggles in 1 minute with 4 basketballs, and I have the Guinness World Record for most basketballs dribbled simultaneously by one person, which is 6.
Okay. See, all of this is, and mind you, you all, she is 18. So
Yeah.
you've done a lot of great things. I guess I have another kind of question, whether it's the athletics or, the juggling, the basketball, the spelling bee, all of those things. are you a person that like sets goals that says I'm going to do this and I want to do this and win awards, or do you just do it and you just continue to build and those things kind of happen?
Yes, definitely the latter option. I personally, I love a good award. I love a good trophy. But personally for me, I am motivated just by, my own desire to sort of prove to myself that I can do it. That's something that I have spoken about a lot. Kind of just, yeah, I want to dribble 4 basketballs, for example, because like I just want to like prove to myself that I have the ability to sort of set my mind to something and then achieve it. And obviously you're not going to succeed every single time,
Right.
but that's part of the journey also. You can't expect to get every single skill or thing that you want to do, right? But being able to do it, to get any sort of attain any sort of skill that you want to put yourself to is like such a great feeling, in part because of the fact that you don't always attain every goal that you want.
That's true. That's true. Donna is saying this is true. Spelling bee, world records. There's no limit to your potential. Absolutely not. Absolutely
Thank you,
not.
Donna.
And motivated to prove yourself sounds like a good book.
Doesn't it?
We'll go ahead and ask this. I kind of already know the answer to this question, but are there any more books before you start college?
Yes. So I do not. Thank you about it. I do not have a book coming out before I start college. However, I do have another book that's sort of in the streamlines, the pipelines being worked on that will come out while I'm in college.
Right. Yes, because this one just came out.
Yeah.
And you start college in about 3 weeks. So yes,
Yeah.
not another one between now and then. Oh wow. But I love the fact that, you do things because you want to do them and you're not afraid to try new things.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that you have, that support system that allows you to, try new things and do new things. And I'm just thinking that sometimes it's hard for people to really even consider what that is. So obviously when you dream big,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And what advice or motivation or anything like that would you give to others who might, maybe sometimes struggle with having dreams or going after different things that they might aspire to?
Yes. So I overall one could say that I dream big, right? But I think a really important way of sort of rephrasing that makes dreaming big more approachable is to say that I dream in a series of small dreams. I
Mm.
I I don't just I didn't when I started spelling, for example, I didn't say I'm going to win the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Like that's because if you think about it like that, that's an insurmountable, that's like think of it like climbing Mount Everest, for example. As far as I know, most people don't just walk to the base and then just go straight up to the top, right? No, there's a series of camps that are at different levels on this mountain. There's base camp, there's camp number 1, camp number 2, whatever, right? And dreams and large aspirations are just like that. You don't. It'll look really daunting if you're just like starting from 0 to 100, but 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. See, doesn't that sound so much more doable? And
So
that's
much better.
how I visualize things.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's good for all of us. Like what say, how you eat an elephant one bite at a time,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But thinking about juggling in
Mm-hmm.
terms of life, not so much physical juggling.
Mm-hmm.
How do you or have you to this point managed that? And of course, you're about to start college here in a few weeks, and you'll be continuing to have other things happening in your life. So, what suggestions do you have for people of any age who have a lot of interest or a lot of priorities that
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they're that they have space and time to do those things?
Yes. So one thing that I would say is that sometimes with our hobbies and stuff, we kind of have a viewpoint. We're like, oh man, I only have 24 hours of a day and I'm sleeping for 8, 9 of them, hopefully, so how am I going to find time to do all of this stuff? And a big thing that I've found, is that you don't have to do everything for 2, 3 hours. Like, say you want to get into the hobby of drawing, you could actually just do that for like 15 minutes, right? And I think
Mhm.
usually, not every day, right? You don't even have to do it every day. Like 4 times a week, you could just sit and draw for 15 minutes or more, depending on what's going on. And I think that's a way. Like, and then you do those 15 minutes. Maybe you spend 30 minutes or 2 times a week working on your rock climbing skills or trying to do a one-handed push-up. I don't know. There's lots of different things one can aspire to. So that's kind of like the way that I think of like visualizing being able to participate and dabble in many different interests while having a very busy schedule, whether that means being a college student or having a job or this or that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, 'cause I think of myself, I have to do that because I do have a day job, and then I do this.
Right,
And
exactly.
sometimes I'm emailing Zaila or her team in the middle of the day, and I have to stop and do that. So yes, I think if it's something that you really want and it's important enough to you that you find a way to make space for that. And I like the idea of breaking things down into chunks. So it doesn't mean that you have to sit and try to write 5 chapters,
Exactly.
all at once. Maybe if you write 5 paragraphs and just do that over time, that can be a good thing for you. So, of course, we've been talking about Weird and Wonderful You, which is your fifth book. But your first book actually was It's Not Bragging If It's True. I love that title. It's Not Bragging If It's True. So that came on the heels of winning some of the awards and things like that. What was it that led you to that particular title? Because I love that speaks of confidence. Like, hey, I'm not bragging, it's true.
Yes. So, the overall story, the kind of the dinner party story of this is that my mother actually came up with that title pretty much.
Okay.
So, in
Yay,
the
mom.
process, yes, right? In the process of like speaking with Marty, the woman who helped me write this book, we were at a nice little coffee shop, having our little coffee drinks, talking about what would eventually become this book. And something that I would say a lot is, oh, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, or oh, I don't want to do this, I want to do that. And then my mom, who was sitting off to the side, was like, it's not bragging if it's true. And Marty was like, oh, I love this. And it eventually became the title of the book.
That is so good. And I just like the idea. So again, yay, mom. But I like that thought of that because just sometimes it's easy, as women, I won't say women, girls, young people, to kind of downplay the things that make you great or make you
Mhm.
wonderful. We might lean in on the weird, but we don't lean in on the wonderful, right?
Right.
But to really be able to say, hey, yes, it's not bragging if it's true. Because there are people in the world that will tell you to, have humility or be humble or, not to, speak too highly of yourself. But if it's true,
Yes, exactly. That was something, that I think to a certain extent that all of us, experience in day to day life where, you're very much taught, oh, you need to be very humble, very show lots of humility, which is true. Obviously, you don't want to be bragging about things that you haven't done. You don't want to be like saying, oh, I did this, oh, I did that, and kind of really like lifting yourself up, especially if it's like at the expense of others. You never want to be doing that. But like, it's not bragging, if you say, oh, I can juggle 5 basketballs. It's not bragging. It's more of just a statement of fact, and that's something that I'm still, to be honest, learning how, to take into account, in my day to day life.
and that is important to celebrate yourself. I was talking to my therapist a few days ago, and that was one of the things she said to me. She's like, celebrate yourself, buy yourself flowers, acknowledge the things that you do every day, because that's another thing. Sometimes we wait until it's this big grandiose thing, but there are little things along the way. So like for you to go from dribbling 2 balls to 3, that's something to celebrate. 3 to
Hmm.
4 is to celebrate, those little steps along the way, and not always think, oh, well, when I get the world record, then I'm going to celebrate.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have to ask you, Zaila, because you have so many things going on and so many powerful, wonderful things, how do you unwind or relax, or what things do you do to kind of just have some you time?
Yes. So some of the things that I like to do, is I love to sleep. I love sleeping.
Hey, sleep.
But I love to cook and bake. Those are two things that sort of like bring me peace.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the moment, because days can get a little stressful in the kitchen sometimes. But overall, it brings me peace. And I also love to listen to podcasts and take long baths and scribble and scratch slash draw. Sometimes like those are all things that sort of give me an opportunity like to unwind and relax at the end of a long day.
Mm-hmm. That's important as well. Those things that aren't necessarily that you're going for a particular goal,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that you're
exactly.
just doing it for the joy of it, for the joy
Yes,
of it.
exactly.
I think that's important. And, even as you go to school here soon, same thing, having things you might not be able to bake depending on where you're living or whatever, but figuring out all those things that you can do that you can still continue to make space for those sorts of things in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
hmm So, of course, it's not bragging if it's true, which is like a nonfiction book. And I like the fact that the books that you write are really like extensions of your life. It's not like you're trying to write something that you don't know about, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
we
yes.
have a couple of books that are step into reading books. One is Sports Are Fun and Words Are Magic. So just tell us a little bit about what the step into reading books, what that really means for those who might not know.
Yes, so Step Into Reading is a specific program that's sort of overall run by Random House. And kind of the idea of this program is, as the name suggests, kind of give a first introduction to the little ones on reading, right? These are books that are probably going to be read to them before they go to sleep by their parents, right? These are books that are kind of giving you like a fun introduction into reading, which is something that's very important to me because that's like my love of reading, my love of, and by an extension, learning was introduced to me by books being read to me. Like, for example, books like Honey, I Love,
Mm-hmm.
illustrated by Eloise Greenfield. I love pretty much anything Eloise does. I love, Good Night Moon, Under the Sunday Tree, like books like children's books like that I grew up having read to me. And then, due to my interest in the bright, colorful illustrations, the simple, easy to digest words, right, exactly, the easy to digest words, by then I transitioned from them being read to me by being read by me. And that
Mm-hmm.
transition was facilitated by, the sort of like pattern that Step Into Reading uses. So I think it's a really lovely program.
It is, because there are a lot of children who might, struggle with reading, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they don't, then everybody doesn't have someone who's going to read to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to present things that makes it a little bit easier for them to, again, step into reading, I think that's pretty great. And that someone like you who has this love was able to take your thoughts and your ideas and create something for, children of that age.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's pretty cool. And Donna has another. Do you have book recommendations for children?
Yes. So the first author that I really want to shout out is this author named Zaila Avant-garde. I really recommend those books for young children. And then after Zaila Avant-garde, the next sort of books that I just dimly remember reading as a child. For example, I remember this book, Honey, I Love, which was illustrated by Eloise Greenfield. Pretty much any book that is illustrated by Eloise Greenfield is like my favorite, children's books. Another book that I mentioned that I really grew up loving was Goodnight Moon. I feel like that's, a bit classic right there. But when I was a kid, I was obsessed with those books, so those are sort of my. I also remember this, really brightly painted book I used to read called Under the Sunday Tree, which
Mm,
kind of was like, it was like a glimpse into, like, I believe, Bahamian culture, if I remember correctly, and it was just. I really loved reading those books. For slightly older kids, especially if they're like interested in different cultures like I am, there was this series of books I used to put up called Enchantment of the World, and
mm,
they would be books that were very like digestible and had lots of pictures in them, and would be about different countries around the world. Like, you could learn about China, you could learn about the Czech Republic, you could learn about Nigeria, Cameroon. Like, there were lots of, and each book was like very well formulated for like 8 to 10 to 13 to 37-year old child.
yeah.
So those are some books that I really recommend.
Well, thank you for those recommendations because, one of the things is I actually, outside of doing this, I'm a part of a reading program that I go and read to a student once a week during their lunch break. And we're
Mm-hmm.
always looking for exciting books to read and different things and things that are culturally relevant, all of that, because that makes a difference as well, whether or not what you're reading really resonates with you. I mean, yeah, we can read general things, but it's something about picking up a book like this and seeing
Mm-hmm.
that pretty brown girl right there. There's something
Mm-hmm.
special about that. We have a question. What advice would you give to girls who are interested in science and STEM careers?
Yeah, yes. So the first thing that I think is really important to say is, please, for the name of God, do not listen to people who try to tell you, oh, maybe you don't want to go into that field, and like that's a very common experience that I have personally sort of in a way experienced, for young women who are going into science and STEM careers. There's kind of this stigma almost that, like, oh, girls aren't, I don't know, in biomedical researchers, for example. Like, that's something that I'm interested in going to, doing biomedical research. And there's kind of like oftentimes this idea, and you can also be indirectly discouraged sitting in these classes. For example, like a lot of like people who I have listened to their stories and learned from them, they talk about, oh, I went into my college engineering class and I was the one female sitting in that class. And just, even though nothing's being said, at the same time something's being said. And my biggest advice is to sort of, it kind of ignore any bad vibes like that are being sent out to you, and just remember why you're doing this and what your end goal is, and just work towards that goal, and sort of disregard the subtle and very not subtle signaling that you may receive on this path.
Exactly, because you got the brains, you got the talent to be able to do it and to do that. So, actually, thank you, Rosie. That's a segue into where we're going, because in the last few minutes, I really want to talk about some of the things that you have coming up, Zaila. So, first of all, you graduated earlier this year, correct, from high
Yes,
school?
finished high school out.
Yes, yes. And I'm gonna let you tell it. You have a full scholarship that's
Mhm.
going to allow you to go to school and study. So could you tell us what that is? I know what it is because I have it here, but I want you to tell us.
Yes, yes, yes. So thankfully, I have a full scholarship to go study at the University of Maryland, where I'm going to be majoring cell biology and genetics, which is sort of a gateway to my future career goals, which is working with the NASA Human Research Program, and just in general working in the biomedical research field.
Mhm. So what is it that drew you to want to study science?
Yes. So originally, when I was a young girl, I was really interested in the social sciences, right? Like I
Mhm.
was really in my parents. My mother has like a master's in history. My dad was studying for 3 degrees in anthropology, sociology, and history. And being that they were broke college students, they didn't always have money to buy me like the nice kids books. So
Mhm.
sometimes I would be reading their anthropology textbooks after I had read all the other books due to my voracious reading appetite, right? So, I was from a young age reading these textbooks and like I had a really deep interest in like history, anthropology. Like I used to, believe it or not, be like this big World War II nerd. Like it was a whole thing. But when I slowly, as I sort of like just got older and learned more and more about different things, more about science, which was definitely encouraged by my late grandfather, who was a college physics professor and stuff, and
Okay.
who like taught me like a lot of math and physics what like during my homeschooling. So definitely someone influenced by that, I can kind of start shifting more towards an interest in science. And kind of the what I think of as the catalyst for me really wanting to dive into that as a career was in 2020, I believe, when Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier won the Nobel Prize for like chemistry or something like that for discovering CRISPR. And sort of seeing, like, I remember reading a story about this young woman in Mississippi whose entire life had been upended by sickle cell anemia and was
Mhm.
really struggling, and she received this CRISPR treatment, which is sort of like a gene editing technology, and suddenly she was able to travel with her sons, do this, do that, and like seeing the effect that this research done by those two women had really like was the catalyst for like, yeah, this is what I want to go into.
Wow, that is so powerful. What they did, and the fact that it inspired you to want to do something in that field. Now, I know you said biomedical research, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned NASA.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, how do you envision the biomedical research leading you to working with NASA?
Yes. So specifically, what I want to work with, well, so my dream of working with NASA is with the Human Research Program, specifically studying the psychological and physiological effects of long-term space exposure, which is a slightly fancy way of saying I would like to see humans be able to live on Mars, which I know right now sounds a little sci-fi, a little Star Wars, a little Star Trekky, but I will. I have a confidence that with enough time and enough research put into this, we can be able to kind of iron out the knots that are sort of stopping us from being able to, be able to inhabit places that are not Earth.
Wow, that's something just to think to live there, not just to because
And
I don't want to be political. Right now, you might want to be there, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But just to have those options and to think that there could be a time that I'm thinking when I was growing up watching the Jetsons or whatever.
Mhm.
There could be a time that people are actually able to travel and live in different places and things like that. And I love the fact that you are really, interested in that and wanting to lean into that just because, the space is the next frontier.
Right, exactly. The final frontier, as some might say.
Right, the final frontier. The final frontier. So, of course, you're going to continue to do some of the other things? Are you planning to do sports as well while you're in school, or have you kind of laid the sports to the side for now? Or
Yes, sports has been laid to the side. I definitely will still be focusing on juggling. Like it was specifically due to certain circumstances lately. I've been really thinking about like really diving a bit more into juggling, since I have some. It's just I love like because I hadn't juggled for a little bit for some time a while back, and then like I one day I was just like, no, you can't lose skills like that. So
right.
I walked into my basement and I just picked up like 5 basketballs and started juggling them again after not juggling for months. And like doing that was kind of like a really lovely like reconnection moment for me, sort of like being you know, this is something that I really enjoy doing. So I'm definitely going to be like leaning more into this as I like during my college career. Hopefully, who knows? Organic chemistry might take me out, but we're going to
You,
see.
yeah, you never know. I don't know if it'll take you out, but it might require a lot of time.
Yeah.
Put it that way. I don't think anything would take you out personally. But yes, and I'm thinking, I know nothing about juggling, but I'm thinking in my head, there's a science to that as well. I mean, there's a physical skill, but isn't there kind of some science and things involved in that and understanding?
Yeah, some people, yeah, some people have said like that, like I, due to my juggling abilities, I would be like a perfect like surgeon. And
Hmm.
I think it's for the betterment of all parties involved that I do not pursue that career path. I don't want to be doing anything that I can get lawsuits for, so I'm gonna.
Right. Smart
but
girl.
but in general, yes, obviously I'm not thinking of geometrical equations or anything while I'm juggling, but I do definitely believe that my ability to juggle and like have that is definitely sharpens my mind, just for because it's a very complex thing that for me personally is like based off of rhythm and this whole other thing, right? So I definitely believe that it keeps my mind sharp.
I would say so. I would say so. Is STEM math heavy, science heavy, or both? And I guess it depends on what you're studying.
Yeah, it does. There's a wide range of what you're doing in STEM. And, one of the M in STEM is mathematics, and like, for example, like what I'm going into is not super math heavy. It depends. Like, if I was going to say something like biostatistics or something like that, it would be very math heavy. So it just really just depends on like where you're going into. But one constant in STEM is that you cannot run away from math. Math is definitely, it's a part of life. Like no matter what you're doing, you could be quilting and you're sitting there pulling out the calculator, probably calculating how many inches or whatever. If you can't tell, I don't quilt, but I figure that math is involved in it.
Right, right. Do you have any encouragement for girls that are wary about math?
Yes. So for when I was a little girl, I was somebody who was very wary about math. I think not for whatever, especially like society as a whole, sort of like at times pushes this idea of math is scary, right? Like that's like I think most of us can remember in our scholastic careers, sort of like being a little wary of math because math is like, it can be a bit scary at times. But as I generally throughout my school career, I really enjoyed math. And the reason that I personally liked math was because at least the type of math I've been doing so far, as a high schooler, I know when you get up to the higher levels of mathematics, discomfort sort of slips away, which I've experienced a little bit. But it's very like you put one in, you get one out, right? Like you do 2 plus 2, it will equal 4. There's like a confidence that like if I follow this formula, if I divide both sides by this number, right? If I do this, I will get this. And like, oh, I get 2 plus 2 and it equals 3. I know fundamentally, oh, there's something that I did wrong here. Let me go back and like correct this.
Mhm.
So I think for me personally, a personal encouragement I would have is just sort of like find comfort in the certainty of math. Like math is like a very certain thing. It's at the lower levels. So that's like something I would say.
All right. I love that. I love that. Well, believe it or not, we are almost out of time.
Oh
That
no, it's been
that
such a
went by
fun.
fast. Yes, it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. So of course, you start school on September 2nd is what you told me. So coming up
Yeah.
real soon. So how are you feeling about that? Because that's a new adventure for you.
I'm feeling really excited. It's going to be, a new chapter in my life. And I'm really excited to start kind of like officially pursuing my, like, I've been wanting, and, I've been doing internships. I just finished my internship here at Duke over the summer. Like, I've been like doing internships, but to like kind of on like officially start like my path towards this end goal that I have of becoming Dr. Avant-garde.
All right, Dr. Avant-garde. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I always tell people that once you've been here to Brown Girl Collective, you're always welcome to come here. So whether it's a book or, when you send somebody out into Mars, you're like, come back here and talk about it. And I can replay some clips from when we had this conversation.
Oh,
But
for sure.
yes, but I told you before we came on, I'm like a proud auntie just to see all of the things that you are doing. And, even though, as I said, it's the first time having, you're the youngest guest we've ever had, the first time we've ever done, a picture book. But I just thought it was so important because one of the goals of Brown Girl Collective has always been for us to learn more about our stories, to see more about the things that we're doing, and for people to be inspired by what they see others doing. Because a lot of times, you may go into spaces and that you don't have that particular type of inspiration, but it's good when you do have it. But I
Yeah.
guess my final question, though, is sometimes you are the trailblazer, as you have been.
Mm-hmm.
So, what thoughts do you have around that? For people who may not have a path to follow, but to blaze their own trail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my advice to somebody looking to kind of blaze their own trail is, something that I mentioned earlier, start small. At times we can sort of have this idea like, I don't know, oh, I need to open this, I want to have a cupcake shop, you know, dynasty. I want to have one in every state, right? And that'll seem really daunting. You might work towards it, but then like you only take small steps. It might take 2 steps back, and you'll be working your main job and all of this stuff, right? So my advice to anybody blazing a trail is sort of like, just work in small steps and make sure to celebrate every small win. As you mentioned earlier, sometimes we can have like a tendency to be like, I'll pop a bottle of champagne when I win a Nobel Prize, right? And that that's a long way away. You might never reach that goal. And if
Mhm.
you don't and if you don't reach that goal and you haven't celebrated anything, you might just feel like, oh man, well, that was a waste, right? But I personally believe that you should pop champagne or your drink of choice at every single win. If you open your first cupcake shop, you sell cupcakes to your uncles and aunts, that's a win. You open your first cupcake shop in Reno, Nevada, right? That's a win, and like kind of celebrate, take small steps and celebrate those small steps.
Mhm. Mhm. And know that you can blaze trails. You can
Yeah,
do it. Don't let anybody, and this is just my 2 cents. Don't let anybody talk you out of blazing the trail that you're trying to blaze, right?
yes, indeed.
Right. So, from Donna is saying much success and favor at college. I enjoy your guests and her books. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Donna.
you, thank you.
Now, you did ask about a website. Do you have a website right now? I know you have social media, but do you have a website?
I don't think I have a website, but I do have a social media, that's for sure.
So yes, that information has been scrolling, so you can follow Zaila there, and then I'm sure at some point with all the things you have going on, you probably will launch a website just for
Yeah.
for all of your different projects and stuff like that. But the social media is the place for right now. So in these next couple of weeks before you go to school, what fun are you going to do? You got anything exciting planned?
I do actually have something really interesting that I'm doing with the Guinness World Records. I'm going to be celebrating their 70th anniversary, and I've been doing some stuff with that, so that's going to be really fun. And then I'm also going to be sleeping. I didn't,
Sleeping, yes,
I
sleeping.
didn't, I didn't always get to do a lot of that during my internship here. So I'm catching up for lost time. And, packing is going to be, I got to pack to go home to DC, and then pack to go to Maryland, and it's going to be sleeping, packing, and having fun.
I love that. Sleeping, packing, having fun. I need a shirt that says this. Sleeping, packing, and packing to travel. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And having fun. I love that. I love that. And again, everybody, please pick up a copy of Weird and Wonderful You, or It's Not Bragging if it's true. Those two rhyme. Sports are fun, words are magic, and words of wonder from Z to A. All of these books are available by Zaila, and we know there's going to be more and more to come. For those who may not have a specific place where you shop, you can go to the Brown Girl Collective Bookstore, which is affiliated with Bookshop, and find Zaila's books there. So thank you again. Thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your busy schedule, for helping us to make history as you being the youngest person, the first children's book. And you know what? When I posted you up, now other people are like, can I come talk about my children's book? And I'm like, we will see. We had to start with Z, and then we can work our way back up to A. How about that? So thank you so much for being here. And I think we have like one last comment, maybe. Oh, just saying thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again for being here. And so everybody, a lot of times I have words at the end. Don't have any words today, but I do look forward to seeing everyone next week for our next upcoming guest. And please continue to follow Zaila, pick up her books and all of that good stuff. And we'll see you again soon. Now, I don't want you to hang up. Everybody else, we're about to let you go. Okay. All right. See you all again next week with more great, wonderful guests. And you have a great week. Take good care. Bye-bye.